What happens when someone publicly humiliates the voice in front of 55,000 screaming fans? In 1994, during Whitney Houston's triumphant I'm Your Baby Tonight world tour, a shocking moment occurred that nobody saw coming. A sharp-tongued TV host made a devastating comment about Whitney's gospel roots during a live HBO broadcast, thinking she had scored the ultimate put-down. But what Whitney did next left the entire Madison Square Garden speechless and showed the world why her voice was truly a gift from God. This is the untold story of grace under fire and how one woman's vocal response became a masterclass in dignity that changed hearts forever. If this incredible story moves you, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because we've got more untold stories about music's greatest legends that will absolutely blow your mind. The year was 1994, and Whitney Houston was riding the highest wave of her career. The Bodyguard soundtrack had just become the best-selling soundtrack of all time, with I Will Always Love You dominating charts worldwide for an unprecedented 14 consecutive weeks. Every concert was a sold-out spectacle, and Whitney's voice had reached a level of power and precision that left audiences in complete awe. Her I'm Your Baby Tonight world tour was breaking attendance records across the globe, with fans flying from different countries just to witness the voice perform live. On a crisp October evening in New York City, Madison Square Garden was packed with 55,000 devoted fans who had waited months, sometimes years, to see their idol perform. The atmosphere was electric. The stage was set with elaborate lighting and backup dancers, and the anticipation was absolutely palpable. But this particular night would be remembered for far more than just Whitney's incredible vocal performance. The concert was being broadcast live on HBO, marking a rare television event that had music lovers across America canceling their Friday night plans to watch from home. The broadcast featured celebrity guest commentators, including a well-known entertainment reporter named Victoria Sterling, who was known throughout the industry for her razor-sharp wit and controversial opinions that often crossed the line from critique into personal attack. Victoria had built her entire career on making bold, often cruel statements that generated headlines and kept viewers talking. With her perfectly styled blonde hair, expensive pearl necklace, and business suit that screamed authority, she looked every inch the confident media personality who had never been challenged on live television. Her network had specifically chosen her for this broadcast because of her ability to create buzz and keep audiences engaged, even when her comments made people uncomfortable. What the HBO producers didn't anticipate was how far Victoria would go in her quest for attention and ratings. As Whitney's silhouette appeared behind the backdrop for her opening number, the cameras caught Victoria adjusting her vintage microphone with a calculated look in her eyes that suggested she was about to make a statement that would dominate entertainment news for weeks to come. The crowd's roar was absolutely deafening as Whitney prepared to take the stage. This was supposed to be a celebration of music, vocal artistry, and the incredible connection between a performer and her audience. Whitney had spent months perfecting every detail of this tour, from the intricate choreography to the stunning costume changes, to the elaborate staging that transformed each song into a theatrical experience. Behind the scenes, Whitney's team was managing the complex logistics of the live HBO broadcast while ensuring that everything ran smoothly for what was being billed as the concert event of the year. Her longtime vocal coach, sound engineers, backup singers, and choreographers were all focused on delivering the magic that Whitney Houston concerts had become famous for worldwide. None of them could have predicted that the real drama would come not from the stage, but from the commentary booth positioned in the VIP section. As Whitney Houston glided onto the stage wearing a stunning sequined gown that caught the arena lights like diamonds, the crowd erupted into a frenzy that could probably be heard in neighboring boroughs. She was absolutely radiant, her curly hair perfectly styled, her presence commanding every inch of Madison Square Garden, with the confidence that only comes from knowing you possess one of the greatest voices in human history. The opening notes of I Want to Dance with Somebody filled the arena, and for several magical minutes, everything was exactly as it should have been. But then, during a brief pause between songs as Whitney stopped to thank her New York City fans, Victoria Sterling saw her opportunity. As Whitney's warm, genuine voice carried across the arena, expressing gratitude for the love and support, Victoria leaned into her live microphone, knowing that her words would be broadcast not only to the HBO viewing audience, but also through the arena's sound system to all 55,000 fans present. What she said next would shock viewers across America and create a moment of uncomfortable silence that seemed to stretch on forever, threatening to destroy what should have been one of Whitney's most triumphant performances. "Well, folks," Victoria said with a smirk clearly audible in her voice, her words dripping with condescension, "I suppose when you grow up singing in some little church in Newark, this must feel like quite an upgrade. Though I have to wonder if all that gospel screeching really prepared her for real music. Looking at her up there, I'm not sure if we're watching a concert or a Sunday service that got way too carried away." The comment was broadcast live to millions of HBO viewers, but more devastatingly, it was heard clearly through Madison Square Garden's sound system, reaching not only Whitney herself but all 55,000 fans who had come to celebrate their idol. The reaction was immediate and visceral. A wave of shocked gasps and angry shouts erupted from the crowd, directed not at Whitney but toward the VIP section where Victoria sat looking pleased with her inflammatory statement. Fans began turning in their seats, pointing and expressing their outrage at what they had just witnessed. Some started chanting Whitney's name in defiance, while others shouted for Victoria to apologize or be removed from the venue entirely. The atmosphere had shifted from pure celebration to confrontation in a matter of seconds, and the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. What made Victoria's attack even more painful was the deeply personal nature of her target. Whitney's gospel roots weren't just part of her musical background. They were the foundation of everything she was as an artist and as a person. She had grown up singing in the New Hope Baptist Church in Newark, where her mother, Whitney Houston, was the choir director, and where Whitney had first discovered the power of her voice as a gift meant to inspire and heal others. This wasn't just a critique of her music. It was an attack on her faith, her family, her community, and the very source of her incredible talent. Victoria had chosen to mock the sacred foundation of Whitney's artistry, dismissing the gospel tradition that had produced some of America's greatest voices as nothing more than screeching and carrying on. Standing center stage under the bright lights, Whitney could be seen taking a deep, measured breath. The arena lighting illuminated her face, and for just a moment, HBO viewers could see the impact of Victoria's words. Her expression showed a flicker of hurt, a brief glimpse of the human being behind the superstar persona, before something else began to take its place. A quiet strength that seemed to grow stronger with each passing second. What many people watching didn't realize was that Whitney had been dealing with intense media scrutiny about her personal life, her marriage to Bobby Brown, and constant questions about whether success had changed her. Tabloids had been relentlessly attacking her authenticity, questioning whether she was black enough, street enough, or genuine in her connection to her roots. Rather than understanding the pressures she faced as an African-American woman trying to achieve crossover success while staying true to herself, many critics had turned her achievements into reasons for attack. Tonight, however, standing before 55,000 fans who loved her unconditionally and millions more watching at home, Whitney would find the courage to address these attacks directly, turning Victoria's cruelty into an opportunity for education, healing, and one of the most powerful vocal demonstrations in concert history. The crowd was becoming increasingly agitated as the seconds ticked by. Security personnel began moving toward Victoria's VIP section as fans expressed their anger more vocally. Some were shouting for her to be removed from the venue, while others were chanting support for Whitney with increasing intensity. The atmosphere had shifted from celebration to something that felt dangerously close to confrontation. HBO producers in the control room were frantically trying to decide how to handle the unprecedented situation. Should they cut Victoria's microphone? Should they issue an immediate on-air apology? Should they cut away from the venue entirely and go to commercial? The live nature of the broadcast meant that millions of people had witnessed the exchange, and there was absolutely no way to take it back. Whitney's band members and backup singers could be seen looking toward her for guidance, waiting to see how their leader would handle this moment. They had performed with her countless times and had never experienced anything quite like this. The carefully choreographed show had suddenly become an improvised test of character, And everyone on stage knew that how Whitney responded would define not just this performance, but potentially her entire career. The seconds seemed to stretch into eternity as Whitney stood center stage, 55,000 fans waiting to see what their beloved voice would do next. What happened in the following minutes would become one of the most talked about moments in concert history, showcasing Whitney Houston's grace under pressure in a way that left everyone present completely speechless and forever changed. Instead of responding with anger or walking off stage in justified outrage, Whitney did something completely unexpected that demonstrated why she was truly royalty in the world of music. She gently raised her hand to quiet the still booing crowd, and as Madison Square Garden gradually fell silent, she began to speak in her warm, measured voice that somehow carried to every corner of the massive arena. "You know," Whitney said, her words broadcast clearly through the sound system, "I want to thank that lady for reminding me of something beautiful about my journey." The crowd was hanging on every word, the anger in the arena beginning to transform into something else entirely, curiosity about where their idol was going with this unexpected response. Whitney continued, her voice growing stronger and more confident with each phrase. "She's absolutely right that I grew up singing in church. And you know what? That little church in Newark is where I learned that music isn't just about hitting the right notes or putting on a good show. It's about touching souls and healing hearts." The cameras caught Victoria Sterling in the VIP section, her confident smirk now replaced with a look of growing discomfort as she began to realize that her attack had not had the devastating effect she had intended. Instead, Whitney was transforming the moment into something entirely different. "I learned in that church," Whitney said, her voice taking on the passionate cadence that made her gospel performances so moving, "that when God gives you a gift, you don't use it to tear others down. You use it to lift them up." The arena was completely silent now, 55,000 people absorbed in this unexpected moment of vulnerability and wisdom from their idol. Whitney then did something that no one saw coming. She looked directly toward Victoria's VIP section and said, "Miss Sterling, I'd like to invite you up here on stage with me." The crowd gasped audibly, many fans shouting, "No!" while others seemed intrigued by what their hero had in mind. Security personnel froze in their positions, unsure of what was happening, while HBO producers scrambled to figure out how to handle this unprecedented live television moment. Victoria herself looked absolutely shocked, pointing to herself as if to say, "Who, me?" while clearly uncomfortable with the sudden attention from 55,000 pairs of eyes. "Come on up," Whitney said with genuine warmth in her voice that somehow managed to cut through all the tension in the arena. "I think there's something beautiful we can share with everyone here tonight." After a few moments of hesitation and what appeared to be encouragement from those around her, Victoria made her way down to the stage, the walk seeming to take forever with thousands of eyes following her every step. When she finally reached Whitney, Victoria appeared nervous and completely out of her element, her confident media personality facade cracking under the pressure of standing before such a massive audience without her prepared talking points. Whitney extended her hand, and when Victoria took it, she guided her to center stage under the bright lights. Standing there facing 55,000 people, Victoria looked small and vulnerable, stripped of the authority that her commentary booth position had provided. "I want everyone to give Miss Sterling a warm welcome," Whitney announced, and slowly, reluctantly, the crowd began to applaud, though the sound was notably restrained compared to their usual enthusiasm. "Because here's what I believe," Whitney continued, her voice taking on the inspiring quality that had made songs like Greatest Love of All so powerful. "When we're standing together like this, we're all just human beings trying to figure out how to love each other better." She turned to Victoria and said, just loud enough for the microphones to pick up but gentle enough to feel personal, "I forgive you, and I hope someday you can understand that the music you called screeching taught me how to love, and that love is what you're hearing in my voice right now." Victoria's eyes began to fill with tears as she realized the magnitude of Whitney's gesture. Here was a woman who had every right to humiliate her in return, instead choosing to demonstrate the very grace and spiritual strength that her gospel roots had instilled in her. The crowd began to sense the transformation happening on stage. What had started as an ugly moment of cruelty was becoming something profound and healing. Whitney then asked Victoria a question that would create one of the most memorable moments in live television history. Would you like to help me sing a song about love? The question hung in the air as 55,000 fans waited to see what would happen next in this remarkable display of grace and forgiveness. What followed was a moment that would be replayed countless times and remembered as one of the most powerful examples of turning hatred into healing in entertainment history. Victoria Sterling, tears now streaming down her face, nodded silently to Whitney's invitation, her earlier confidence completely replaced by genuine emotion. With the gentleness that characterized her interactions with fans, Whitney guided Victoria to stand beside her as she addressed the crowd one final time before the music began. "Tonight, we're going to sing Greatest Love of All together," Whitney announced, "because sometimes the most beautiful thing we can do is remember that we all deserve love and respect, no matter where we come from." As the opening piano chords of the song began, Whitney started singing, her voice carrying all the emotion of everything that had just transpired. When she reached the verse about children being the future, she gestured for Victoria to join in. And though Victoria's voice was shaky and uncertain, she sang along, her words barely audible but deeply felt. The sight was extraordinary. The voice and the woman who had just insulted her standing together on stage singing about self-love and human dignity, while 55,000 people watched in amazement. Many in the audience were wiping away tears, moved by the unexpected turn of events and the demonstration of forgiveness they were witnessing. As the song continued, something magical happened. Victoria began to find her voice singing stronger and with more confidence. The crowd, initially hesitant, began singing along too, creating a powerful chorus that seemed to heal the wounds that had been opened just minutes earlier. When Whitney reached the soaring climax of the song, "Learning to Love Yourself, It is the Greatest Love of All," her voice filled every corner of Madison Square Garden with such power and emotion that the entire arena fell silent in awe. When the song ended, Whitney embraced Victoria, and the entire venue erupted in applause that seemed to go on forever, not just for the performance, but for the display of humanity and grace they had just witnessed. Victoria took the microphone with trembling hands and offered a heartfelt apology that was broadcast to millions. "I came here tonight thinking I was better than everyone else," she said, her voice breaking with genuine emotion. "But this woman just taught me what real class looks like. Whitney, I am so sorry for what I said about your church, your background, and your gift. I will never forget what you've shown me tonight." The impact of this moment extended far beyond that October evening in New York. Video footage of the exchange was broadcast repeatedly on news programs across the country, and in the early days of the internet, it became one of the first viral music moments. The story spread through word of mouth, newspaper articles, and television segments, becoming a defining moment in Whitney Houston's public image. Victoria Sterling returned to her show the following week and dedicated an entire program to discussing what had happened. She spoke openly about how Whitney's response had forced her to confront her own prejudices and the casual cruelty that had become part of her professional persona. The experience, she said, had fundamentally changed not only how she approached her work, but how she treated other people in general. More importantly, the incident became a teaching moment that transcended the world of entertainment. Educators began using the story in classrooms to discuss bullying, forgiveness, and the power of responding to hatred with love. Religious leaders referenced it in sermons about grace under pressure and turning the other cheek. For Whitney Houston's fans around the world, the moment solidified their devotion to an artist who had proven herself to be not just a talented performer, but a genuinely gracious human being. It became part of the Whitney Houston legend, a story passed down from older fans to younger ones, as proof that their idol was worthy of their admiration both on and off the stage. Years later, when Whitney faced various personal struggles and media scrutiny, many people would remember that night at Madison Square Garden as evidence of her character. It showed a woman who, when given the opportunity for revenge, chose compassion instead, demonstrating the very values that her gospel upbringing had instilled in her. The elegant response that surprised 55,000 fans that night became a masterclass in grace under pressure, proving that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do in the face of cruelty is to respond with unexpected kindness and show the world what your values really mean. If this incredible story of grace triumphing over cruelty moved you, please hit that like button right now and share this video with someone who needs to see how the voice turned public humiliation into a moment of healing. Your share could be exactly what someone needs today to choose compassion over conflict. But think about this for a moment. When was the last time you witnessed someone respond to cruelty with such dignity? When was the last time you saw someone in a position of power choose healing over hurting when they had every right to strike back? This story isn't just about Whitney Houston and Victoria Sterling. It's about all of us and the choice we face every day between revenge and redemption. Subscribe and ring that notification bell because we have more incredible untold stories that prove kindness conquers cruelty, grace defeats hatred, and sometimes the most powerful response to an attack is an act of love. These are the stories that show Whitney Houston's true character when the world was watching. What's your moment when you chose kindness over cruelty? Have you ever seen someone transform hatred into healing the way Whitney did that night in New York? Tell us in the comments below. Your story might inspire thousands of viewers to choose grace when faced with their own moments of testing. Remember, Victoria Sterling walked onto that stage as someone filled with prejudice and walked off as someone transformed by grace. Whitney Houston could have destroyed her that night in front of 55,000 people and millions of HBO viewers. Instead, she chose to heal her, demonstrating that the gospel values she learned in that little church in Newark weren't just songs she sang, they were principles she lived by. That choice didn't just change Victoria's life. It showed an entire generation what true strength really looks like when your faith is tested on the biggest stage possible. The distance between hatred and healing is sometimes just one act of unexpected kindness. What will you choose when your moment comes?